Hello, and welcome to the first edition of the Liberties Last Refuge podcast. My name is Chris Manning, and those of you who were subscribers, the whole four of you or three of you, however many it was, before may remember this as the Royal Blue and Burnt Orange 2 podcast that I did last year, where I talked mostly about BYU football and a little bit of Texas football. But then I also did a video on some other things, and I haven't done a video in a year, and I've decided to go ahead and bring the podcast back, but I'm going to do a little bit of a different take on it. So while before it was primarily about BYU football and a little bit of Texas, I'm going to be not limited. I'm basically going to do whatever I feel like talking that week. Now, it's still going to be a lot of college football, and particularly, as you can see, BYU football, but that's not going to be the only thing I'm going to talk about. We're also going to talk about politics or events going on, whatever it is that I feel like is the topic of the day. But today we are actually going to talk a little bit about BYU football, a little look ahead to the 2024 season, kind of go over the roster that I think we're going to have and some of the position outlooks. So this will be yet another college football podcast. That's how we're going to start off with something a little light and fun. And hopefully with this new year coming up, if you've noticed, I've got a new background. I'm set up in a different place. A lot of changes been going on over the last year, but I'm going to make a concerted effort to try and at least get out a podcast a week. Like I said, it's not going to be about anything in specifically, but there will be a focus on college football whenever I feel like doing a college football podcast. And the rest of the time, it may be just whatever's in the news for that day or whatever I feel like sitting out here and blabbering to the four of you who will watch this. All right, so let's go ahead and get started going in depth onto BYU's roster for the upcoming year. So I'm kind of a data nerd. I put a lot of stuff in Excel spreadsheets, and that just makes it easy for me to see. And that's what I've done here. And my set's already falling apart. Awesome. Great start. So what I've done is I've broken out what I expect next year's roster to look like as far as I can tell based on class. Obviously, here you have your seniors, then the juniors, sophomore, and these are going to be the freshmen, redshirt freshmen. I've put in red those that I expect who are going to redshirt as of this year. As you can see, obviously, Jake Retzlaff played in the final four games. Darius Lassiter is asking the NCAA for an additional year. And Hinckley Rapati, who had a injury before the season started to his knee, I expect him to take his medical red shirt. Also, Josiah Phillips, who got a touchdown in the last home game of the year, I expect him to also obviously red shirt. And what I've also done is put their position, their 24/7 composite rating, and their star rating. And what kind of jumps out noticeably, I think, is there's a lot of talent in the freshman and sophomore class. And as you get into the juniors and seniors, that 24/7 rating kind of drops off a bit. And that gives me a lot of hope for particularly the next year, for the 24 season, and more particularly for the 2025 season. And the reason for that is if you see the sophomore class and the redshirt sophomores, all those guys there, you've got four different 4-stars right now that I believe are going to be on the roster, and then several high-level 3-stars as well. So when these guys, this year will be their sophomore year, but when they're going into their junior season, and then this freshman class is going to move up, and hopefully we have another good recruiting class, and those who are coming off their mission, like Cody Hagan and Dominic McKenzie, we are going to have a much more talented roster than BYU's ever had. So I'm really looking forward to this upcoming season, and particularly the 2025 season. I think that's when the Big 12 jump is really going to make a difference. Obviously, with BYU, a lot of their players go on 2-year missions. So a high school kid like the 22 class, take Dominique and Cody Hagan, who are two of the highest rated kids in the 2022 class. We may see them in this upcoming season, but it still may be the 2025 year. Now, what I also want to look at is the roster depth and strength at position. And I've kind of broken out every position group, and I've given a position average for that group. And if it's like the quarterback, I just took the top 3 guys. And if there's one person in that position group, out on the field at a time. I took just the top three. Otherwise, I've done the two deep whenever you have multiple people in that position group. So there is a big question at quarterback next year. Are we going to bring in a transfer quarterback? Jake Hatch over at Locked On has been talking about Gary Bohannon coming in. I think that's a terrible idea. I'm not a big fan, especially for your quarterback, bringing in a one and done. You know, Keaton is a great guy, and I'm so sad that he didn't have the year that he was expected to have and that he got hurt. But I don't think a quarterback is a position that you want to bring in for a one-year rental. So I actually hope that instead of focusing on bringing in a quarterback from the transfer portal, instead we work on developing the quarterback room that we have. I think Jake has shown a lot of good things in his brief start. There are a lot of things to work on. Now behind him, it gets a little bit scary. We don't really have much depth there, at least as far as the 24/7 ratings are concerned. There isn't anybody with a very high rating or very high expectations. Now I think maybe Cole Hagan may be a sleeper. He did a gray shirt year and then took probably a red shirt year. This past season, I think probably will still be a red shirt freshman. He was the quarterback at Corner Canyon after Zach Wilson and had even bigger numbers than Zach did. So I think he's got the potential to surprise a lot of people. You know, Zach was a little bit higher rated coming out of college. Cole Hagan was looking at, I believe, going to Yale. And so anybody going to the Harvards, the Yales, any of the Ivy League institution, I don't think that they ever get a high rating. So that rating may be a little bit deceiving. Next, we have the running back room, and LJ Martin is obviously the head and shoulders above everybody else in the room. He is an absolute stud. I'm really glad LJ decided to come to BYU, and obviously he's going to be RB1 coming up in the upcoming season. And I'm also really glad Miles Davis decided to come back and come out of the transfer portal. I think Davis has been underutilized, and I think we really haven't taken advantage of the speed that he has, but now that he's likely to be the number 2 running back, I think he may have a great year. Obviously, LJ is going to get the majority of the carries in just the way that Roderick runs his offense. Your RB1 gets 80 to 85% of all the carries. I don't know if that's the best way to handle it, but obviously I think LJ is going to be built after he's got a year in the weight room. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year again as long as he stays healthy. The wide receiver room is the second most talented position group on the roster. And again, I put in Cody Hagan and Dominique McKenzie in there, expecting that they'll be able to shake a little bit of the mission rust and probably get some time in. Obviously, Cody Epps is going to be there. Darius Lassiter, as long as he wins his appeal, will be there. Chase Roberts is a stud. So I think the wide receiver room is in really good hands. You see, you got Josiah Phillips, who took his redshirt year, got that touchdown. And as I said, Dominique and Cody are going to come off their mission, and I think they're going to work into the rotation. They just seem to be heads and tails, again, based on the 24/7 recruit rankings, above everyone else. So I really expect the wide receiver room is going to be an area that won't have a whole lot of concern, particularly if Cody and Dominique are able to get into the rotation. Then we go into the tight ends, and this is where we've got a couple of 4-star talent. Reiner Swanson is going to be joining the team this year. I believe he's going to be joining in January, so he'll go through spring ball, be there for the fall and summer training. Jackson Bowers, a 4-star who got on campus last year. Now, he didn't show up, I believe, until the summer and fall, so he didn't get an opportunity. He didn't graduate early and come in early, as many of the high 4-star recruits do. So I think that's going to be still a very good room. Reiner Swanson going to be more of the receiving tight end, and Jackson Bowers is going to be the more smash mouth you bring in to block. But also Keanu Hill is going to be making a change from the wide receiver group to the tight end group, and I think this is going to be phenomenal for Keanu Hill. He has such athleticism, and he is clearly the best blocking. He's the best blocking receiver on the team. If you follow my Twitter page, I have praised his blocking, many, many times. So I think this is going to be a good thing for Keanu. He didn't quite have the year I expected this past year. Dealt with an injury, it sounded like. So hopefully Keanu will get a little bit more time, and he's going to be a handful. Trying to get linebackers to cover him. I think he could have an amazing final year at BYU. Now, the offensive line at the very end of the season was really looking sketch, and we were kind of worried about what it was going to be. But now you've got 4 players who had starting experience coming back. You're going to have Caleb Etienne, Connor Pay, Waylon Lapuahu, and Braden Kime have all announced that they're going to come back. Now, Caleb, Connor, and Braden are going to be in their final year of eligibility. And Caleb had an up and down year. There were times where he looked lost and missed a lot of blocks. So he's got to clean that up. Now behind them, there really is a whole lot of unknown. So this is again a fairly talented group, maybe not quite as talented as last year, but last year didn't meet expectations. We'll see with the new offensive line coach coming in that maybe these guys will live up to their potential a little bit better. Now we go to the defensive side of the ball. And at safety, there's really going to be this is an area where BYU has nobody who is really shown as far as the ratings go, except for Raider Dumani. I think Raider has a chance to start for a starting position this year. He did get some starts and got a lot of playing time this year, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up the day one starter. We should have Micah Harper back, and that's amazing. Again, another guy who suffered an injury before the season started. And honestly, Ethan Slade and Crew Wakely, who came in as, in essence, walk-ons, I think played way above their rating. So I don't have a whole lot of concern in the safety room. But if we see a lot of injuries like we did last year, it could be an area where BYU has their weakest area. Now in the cornerback, there's going to be a lot of question marks again. Only returner is going to be Jacob Robinson. He's the only one who really had significant snaps. We're going to have Marquis Collins coming in from Weber State, transfer. And I actually think Darian Alexander is going to have an opportunity to make the starting rotation. He may not start right off the bat, but he is going to be joining BYU in January, so he will be here for spring ball. He'll have the whole summer conditioning and, of course, full fall camp. And just looking at a little bit of his tape, I think he has the skills and particularly the speed and size that he could be pushing for some playing time. He may not start at the beginning of the year, but I do believe he will make his way into the rotation early in the season and could end up, I don't have no other logo there. Anyways, could get a lot of playing time. All right, next we have the linebackers, and this is obviously the area, the skill position group that has the most talent on the roster. Ben Bywater announced he's coming back for his final year, a huge get for BYU. And actually, this is an area where we have the one area where we have an abundance of talent that it may be hard getting them all on the field, because behind Ben Bywater, you've got Harrison Taggart, who's a 4-star coming in, that transferred from Oregon. He got some playing time when Ben got hurt. You've got Jack Kelly, who's going to be coming in, rated as a 4-star, transferring from Weber State. You got Siale Esera, also a 4-star athlete. So while Ben isn't rated as a 4-star, if he were to enter the transfer portal, he'd easily get a 4-star rating. So we have basically 4 linebackers who are 4-star talent. And then you've got young freshman, going to be a freshman this year, Ephraim Asiata, who's coming in as a high 3-star. And Ace and Micah Kafusi played well above that rating, the limited of snaps that they got. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jay Hill decides to go a little bit of 3-4 this year, particularly with Danny Siali coming in and can be that nose tackle, true nose tackle position. So that would not surprise me. Just because you have so much talent and you may want to get them on the field, particularly in obvious running downs. At the defensive tackle position, it is mostly going to be brand new guys. There's not going to be a whole lot of returning talent here. That's why we got Luke and Sonny, and now we did have Wyatt, David, and Josh, who have been on the team for the years. But the top 3 rated guys are going to be new. Now, I don't know whether or not this is where they're going to play when they actually come in. But I think Danny here has the ability to be a nose tackle in the way that Kairos Tonga was. He is a massive man and could eat up a lot of blocks. And this could make life a whole lot easier for Tyler and Isaiah there on the edge. At the defensive end position, going to bring in several new guys. A couple have been Bodie, I think, may be able to get some playing time this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if Isaiah Moa decides to, if he can stay healthy and hits the weight room this year, I think he could probably take a lot of playing time away from Isaiah Banya, if not become the starter. Isaiah came in from Boise State and had a lot of hype, but he really didn't produce. Tyler had half the sacks on the team. I don't know that Isaiah had more than one. I think he had the Texas game where he got the sack along with the strip. But other than that, he didn't make a whole lot of big plays. So the defensive end position, I think, has really got to step up their game this year. And I really think that Isaiah Moe is going to go ahead and play for some push for that other defensive end position. And Bodie Schoonover would be a guy that wouldn't be surprised. And they may move Sani Tuala. He may not play the defensive tackle. He could be a rush edge as well. So we'll see as we get closer to the season. I'll update all the position groups when BYU updates that. But that's what we're looking at going into the 24 season. So that's what BYU is looking at going into the winter term. I'm excited for next year. Looking at the schedule, I see an easy 5 wins, and then hopefully we can get 2 or 3 more depending on how the other teams shape up. But I think we've got at least 5 wins. Now, again, this is just me going to be rambling on about different topics, whatever I feel like. I'm not going to do any editing. I don't have the time or the skill right now to do any sort of video editing. So you're going to get me in the full, raw, unedited form. I hope maybe you like it. Maybe I say something interesting at some point and you decide to hit that like button. Maybe decide to subscribe and share it, right? Once again, this is now the Liberties Last Refuge podcast, and my name is Chris Manning, and thank you guys so much, and you all have a wonderful and safe new year. See you all a lot more in 2024.